it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another Star Trek video. Even though Star Trek is a big franchise with multiple shows and over 700 episodes, it's pretty accessible and newcomers can start almost anywhere in the franchise. Each series is fairly standalone, and most references from previous shows are explained well enough for new viewers. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the third live-action Star Trek show, is no exception to that rule, whether you're a Trekkie new to DS9 or simply new to Trek altogether. That being said, a lot of DS9 concepts were introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation and further developed in DS9. While not completely required, maybe you want that additional context, that little piece of background information that's nice to know before you start DS9. Well, my dear newcomer, I narrowed down 5 episodes, plus 1 bonus episode, of Star Trek The Next Generation to help you on your first trip through the wormhole with minimal spoilers. Let's boldly go before we stay right here on DS9. Watch these 5 Star Trek The Next Generation episodes before you begin watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine, plus the 1 bonus episode.
Welcome to Deep Space Nine.
But before I go further, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about Star Trek, video games, and whatever else I feel like talking about. And if you'd like to help support the channel, consider becoming a member. Be great to have you aboard.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile.
Up first on the pre-DS9 itinerary is the Next Gen Season 3 finale and Season 4 premiere, the two-parter, The Best of Both Worlds. Considered by many Trekkies to be the best episode of Next Gen, The Best of Both Worlds is a great starting point for DS9's pilot episode, Emissary, an episode that defines the entire show. The Federation is preparing for a confrontation with the Borg, who are bent on assimilating all technology and worlds they encounter, and Captain Picard is determined to stop their rampage across the galaxy, until he's captured and assimilated into the Collective as Locutus of Borg.
The captain has been altered by the Borg.
Altered? He is a Borg.
The reason to watch The Best of Both Worlds before starting DS9 is the Battle of Wolf 359, one of the most brutal battles the Federation fought with the Borg, and a direct result of Picard's assimilation into the Borg Collective. This battle plays an important role in the life of Commander Benjamin Sisko, DS9's commanding officer and a survivor of the Battle of Wolf 359. In fact, the battle itself is the very first scene of the show. A major focus in Emissary is Sisko struggling with the grief of losing his wife during the battle and contemplating leaving Starfleet to raise his son alone, as well as explaining his contempt for Picard.
We met before.
And escort us to Sector 001. If you attempt to intervene, we will destroy you.
Yes, sir. We met in battle.
It's his overcoming his grief during the episode that defines a lot about the character and why he chooses to stay in Starfleet to command the station while also raising his young son. The Best of Both Worlds provides additional context behind the battle that changed Sisko's life forever and would eventually take him to DS9.
Good luck, Mr. Sisko.
I should have been able to stop them. I should.
Since I mentioned The Best of Both Worlds, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention family, which serves as a bit of an epilogue. While 2 of the episode's 3 plots aren't directly related to DS9, it's Picard's that provides another side to his and Sisko's confrontation in Emissary. The episode shows Picard navigating through the aftermath of being captured by the Borg, unsure if he's going to remain on Earth in his native France or return to the stars with the Enterprise. Even though Sisko's feelings and behavior are understandable in Emissary, Picard was also a victim of the Borg, suffering with trauma of his own, and it might even explain why Picard didn't immediately reprimand Sisko for his attitude in their first meeting. He's probably still dealing with guilt from his time with the Borg. Granted, this episode was a big reason why I had a hard time liking Cisco initially, which I have since overcome. He is a pretty great character. But I still recommend watching Family before starting DS9 because it's worth knowing the complete story of what both men went through at Wolf 359.
This is going to be with you a long time, Jean-Luc. A long time. You have to learn to live with it.
It's not you I hate, Cardassian. I hate what I became. Because of you.
Next up is the great Chief O'Brien episode, The Wounded. Not only is this a great episode to watch in general, but it also has some background information that will come in handy when watching DS9. The Enterprise teams up with the Federation's former enemies, the Cardassians, to track down a rogue Starfleet captain attacking Cardassian ships and waging his own private war. Coincidentally, the Enterprise's transporter chief, Chief O'Brien, served under that same captain and fought alongside him against the Cardassians, witnessing the brutality of the war. This episode does two important things for DS9. For one thing, it introduces the Cardassians, a major player in DS9 that can most accurately be described as sometimes adversarial. Plus, you see this Cardassian here? You'll get to know that face very well throughout DS9. Only one man can pull off that swagger, and it's Marco Limo as either Gul Macet or Gul Dukat.
This is a very entertaining story, but why am I listening to it?
The other big thing The Wounded does is expand the character of Miles O'Brien into a three-dimensional character with his own flaws, personal history with the Cardassians, heck, even a war hero from a nameless crewman in the early show. Yeah, did you know he wasn't even given a first name until the previous episode? Heck, he wasn't even given a last name until the second season.
I am Chief Miles Edward O'Brien. I'm very much alive and I intend to stay that way.
O'Brien would move on from being a mere recurring character on Next Gen to a well-loved main cast member on DS9 as the station's chief engineer, and it all started in The Wounded.
I count myself lucky, sir. I've served with the two finest captains in Starfleet.
Ensign Ro reporting as ordered, Commander.
It's Season 5 of Next Gen. Wesley Crusher has moved on to Starfleet Academy, and we need a new ensign to fill his shoes. Enter Ensign Ro in Season 5, the kind of character to butt heads with the entirety of the crew. Ensign Ro Laren, a Bajoran Starfleet officer who was imprisoned for her actions serving on a previous ship, was assigned to the Enterprise to assist with investigating a Bajoran terrorist conspiracy. The entire crew looks at her with distrust, with the exception of 10 forward bartender Guinan, who takes her under her wing, eventually earning Picard's respect and a recurring spot on the show. I really like this episode for showing the importance of mentoring, but in addition to that, it also makes a great episode to watch before DS9. Like how The Wounded introduced the Cardassians, this episode introduced the Bajorans, which would become a major focus in DS9. In fact, the whole reason why Starfleet is on the station is to help the Bajorans and prepare them for entry into the Federation. Though it's shown in this episode, DS9 further explores the struggles the Bajorans endured during the Cardassian occupation of their homeworld, something that Ro lived through before she entered Starfleet. Everything about the Bajorans that DS9 expanded all started with this episode. It's also worth mentioning that behind the scenes, Ro was initially considered as a regular cast member of DS9, but after Michelle Forbes declined the part, Ro was developed into Cisco's Bajoran first officer, Major Kira. Ensign Ro is a great episode, character, and inspiration for one of DS9's best characters.
I serve the Federation, but I am Bajoran.
In the timeline that is Star Trek, Chain of Command almost serves as a prologue to DS9, occurring right before the events of Emissary, minus the Wolf 359 scenes, of course. The Cardassians are on the move again, making the Federation nervous that they could be headed for war.
I didn't say war, Commander. I said incursion.
Picard, Dr. Crusher, and Worf are assigned to investigate possible bioweapons development on a Cardassian outpost, only for Picard to be captured and interrogated for the Federation's tactical information. Like the Best of Both Worlds, Chain of Command is another two-parter, only this one gives further insight into the Cardassians' history and how they went from a spiritually rich people who fell on hard times to a totalitarian power that relies on the military to maintain stability. The episode gives you more of an idea of what the Bajorans went through under Cardassian rule, as well as the state of Cardassia at the start of DS9. And it's a pretty good episode as well, and both Patrick Stewart and David Warner have some of the most memorable scenes in Star Trek in this episode. Come for the DS9 backstory, stay for the great acting.
Ah, you called me Picard.
What are the Federation's defense plans for Minos Corva?
There are 4 lights.
You must contact the Trill quickly. Tell them I need another host. They will send a replacement.
Now, I didn't want to leave this video without mentioning the Season 4 Next Gen episode, The Host. The main reason to watch this episode is because it introduces the Trill, a symbiotic alien species where Trill humanoids host a Trill symbiont. Basically, there's a really smart worm in their belly that gives the current host the knowledge and experiences of all the previous hosts.
She's got a worm in her belly! Oh, that's disgusting.
DS9 characters Jadzia Dax and later Ezri Dax are both joined Trills, so it does help to have a little background about their species. That being said, almost everything about the Trill in Next Gen, from the way they look to how delicate they are, ends up being retconned in DS9, so it's not entirely required viewing, but it's still worth mentioning. Plus, it's not exactly a great episode, so don't feel bad if you skip it. Unless you really wanted to see a Riker-Beverly pairing.
If you're going to leave, you better go right now.
I'm not leaving.
And those are my 5 Star Trek The Next Generation episode recommendations before you watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine. To the DS9 and Star Trek newcomers, you're in for a real treat with DS9. To the veteran Trekkie, what do you think of my list? Are there any episodes you'd like to recommend to newcomers, or did I cover everything in this video? And out of the episodes I mentioned, which one is your favorite? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another Star Trek video. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
And whoever controls Deep Space Nine controls the wormhole.